Oh, it's because it's like an
There we
intro.
go. Yeah. Welcome. Um, very happy to have you here. So the forthcoming book is I'm excited. We have fun conversations all the time. I'm excited to talk about a bunch of stuff, but like the especially the forthcoming book. What would you? It's about big history and big future. What would you say it's about?
Yes, basically that. It starts at the Big Bang, where I try to explain inflationary theory. It's extremely confusing.
Yeah.
And then go through the universe, formation of the Earth, and then origin of life and evolution and human evolution and ancient human history and modern human history. And then we hit the future, and it's a bunch of the stuff going on right now, the cutting edge stuff, and then where it might be going in 50, 100, 200 years. And then we go into the far, far future and end at the end of the universe, which is really far away, the heat death of the universe.
What's the through line? Like I know we've talked about this before, but what's your sense of like, are you looking at free energy? What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not doing I talk about energy, but I love what I think the book you're referring to is David Christian's origin story, which we've talked about, which is amazing. Such a good book. The through line here is more like, what are the big game changing moments for essentially for life? I mean, there you can, again, if you go to energy, you can zoom out more and talk about even just pre-life, and life is a step along that way. But within the part of the book that's from origin of life to the kind of end of humans, which is 90% of the book, the like talking about, if we zoom way out, what do we see? We might see origin of life as obviously a major step for life. Going from single cell to multi-cell, kind of like major step, while like maybe photosynthesis or sexual reproduction or aerobic respiration, or one of these things maybe is these are leaps, but maybe not like mega leaps. So like maybe going to multi-cell is now suddenly like a mega leap, but the whole game changes. Now you have animals competing on a totally different playing field, totally different game, different than the single cell world. And people can quibble with that. Some people would say going from prokaryote to eukaryotic is an even bigger deal. I don't know, but I'm calling it, that's the first major thing after the origin of life. And then I think that, and then when I get into the human story, I think it helps think about the things that we'd be talking about in human history in the future, like with that zoomed out lens. At which point, you might say that the origin of kind of the ability for human brains to connect into a super brain is actually like the next one, maybe right after multicellular life, which is 50,000 years ago, and then maybe AI is another one happening like this decade or whatever. So stuff like that. There's a lot of like just trying to put things in perspective, and I think big history goes well with a discussion of the future because it helps you, it orients you to like just what's even happening here. What's even going on? What is life? Like, what is the universe? What are we even doing? And when you do that, then you can start to see the meaning of what's happening now a little bit easier.
Yeah, so this is the thing I'm like so interested in, like, because it changes. Like I had an experience like this hiking with my son when he was like strapped on my chest when he was like 6 months old, 9 months old, and I'm like walking on lava rock, and I was like, holy shit! Like this rock finally got up and learned to walk, and it's happening right here, right now, with me and my son and my kids and his kids, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this kind of like felt connection to that whole evolutionary sequence.
Totally.
And I'm wondering, like, yeah, what has changed as you've done this research? Like, as you've looked into and you zoom way out, like you've always zoomed way out, but you're both like parenting a toddler as well, and so you're zooming way in and you're zooming way out. Yeah, how has your view changed?
I mean, you can also literally like, you can get a lot of mind-blowing reality check, like insight, from zooming in, like literally to the smallest like units and zooming out to the biggest. It just helps to, because size-wise, but time-wise, because you want to go really, really deep in the past, and then also think about the far future. You want to kind of zoom out on time.
Yeah.
But I think zooming in and out on space is interesting. So zooming out on space, that's a more kind of common cliche thing to do. We say, oh my God, we're so insignificant. Oh my God, the next star, if the sun is a basketball here, the next star, or in New York, the next star is like a golf ball in Warsaw, Poland. Like, oh my God, like it's so much space, we're so tiny. Okay. But zooming in is crazy, because when you think, okay, what am I? I'm this organism, but I'm made of these cells that aren't nearly as smart as I am. They have a lot of intelligence. They have a lot going on, but like they can't do the things that I can do. So it's this emergent property that I'm just a bunch of cells. That's all I am. It's not like, well, there's me and then I have cells. That it's like, no, I am cells. It's a pile of cells. And somehow I have consciousness, and I've got the ability to reason and do other things that humans can do. And I can walk and run, and like all these cells like coordinate together. And so that's crazy. But at least a cell is a living thing. It's kind of the smallest unit that we can call life.
Right.
There's single cell organisms that are just as much of a living organism as you are. What gets weird is when you zoom in further and you're like, okay, what is a cell made of? In the end, if you zoomed way in, okay, it's made of organelles and then like plasma. Well, what's the plasma made of? What are the organelles made of? And you keep zooming in and you see it's these little protein micro machines that are twisting and turning and clamping and and siphoning and doing all the things that it's wild. I mean, it's incredibly interesting, but the proteins aren't alive. They're just atoms moving because of electrical charge. And so that's actually that's all I am, is a bunch of non-living little protein micro machines. I mean, you can zoom in further. Protein micro machines are just a bunch of atoms that have very little going on. They just obey electric charge. So do the protein micro machines. So therefore, so do the cells. So therefore, so do I. It gets to very free will questions, and also just like, what is life?
Right.
Like
right.
I'm made of a bunch of little things that aren't alive. So like, what is going on? So anyway, the book does lots of stuff like that. If I have an interesting thought process that I find interesting about something, like I just did, like I find that interesting, I would just put it in the book, and because it's just fun. So that's kind of what I've been.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about so I think about this a lot. Like you're talking about these protein micro machines, these atoms, like we act like, oh yeah, like this is the standard empirical scientific materialist view, but like protein micro machines and like atoms behave super differently from this table that like my shit is on. Like, so I kind of almost think of it as like proto matter. Like it's not really matter. It's like the stuff that these things are made of. Yeah. What about proto life? Like, is there just a switch where the things are dead and then suddenly they're alive, or is there like a spectrum? There's a spectrum.
I think it's a spectrum, and because the first proto cells, I mean, because a cell can be made without life, because a cell, or at least like something resembling a cell, because the cell membrane is just like what lipids do. When they're bunched in a certain configuration, they'll form a membrane. And when that happens to happen, and inside of that are some maybe primitive RNA molecules, which just again come together because either it's a freak thing or it's common. We don't really know, but again, electrical charges pull these things into certain configurations. But when one has the property of it is able to self-replicate, and it tends to, because of electrical charges, and it happens to be wrapped in a protocell membrane, and the protocells start to have the ability to pass, things pass through the pretty loose early membranes. And, before it's just like, it goes like this, and the story keeps getting more. And one day you're like, oh my God, that's a real cell. Like, I guess where there's life, but it's like, maybe the RNA itself, we could call life.
Right.
There's no, I think, again, different people have different definitions. What's less interesting, it's less interesting to me, like the semantic moment, because clearly the proto stuff is this doing the same thing. It's once something starts self-replicating, and therefore undergoing some kind of Darwinian pressure, because the thing that self-replicates badly, it just peters out and the molecules drift away, right? And the things so if there's lots of them, the one that replicates well will start to have a lot more children, right? And so, and will just persist longer. So it's just, Darwinian evolution kicks in as soon as you have self-replication with heredity. So like the parent thing makes a copy of itself, not something that's totally different. but then the best things will that copy themselves the best will start to basically form. I mean, you could call it life. But some people will say it's not till you get to a full cell, the earliest, that. So I don't know, but it's just weird because it's not living stuff.
Right.
The actual things are just atoms that have no life. They're no different than the atoms in the table. And that's why, it's like when you look at the protein micro machines, it's so shockingly intricate, like the best nanotechnology better than anything we could create by far. I mean, it's like unbelievable. And what it is like, that's just billions of years of evolution. I mean, if you look at a cell, if you look at an amoeba, you'll find just as amazing in stuff when you zoom way in. And it's not easy to get to that. Not for us, not for evolution. It took evolution a long time, like hundreds and hundreds of millions of years to start to, even just to have DNA and proteins as separate things versus just RNA that was kind of functioning as both earlier on. And so like when you talk about your kid, Jack, I know Jack's the best. I now have a toddler and a baby, and I'm holding my baby up, and I'm just like, so many billions of years of evolution had to do its thing to like make this. This is like a miracle, this fat baby I'm holding. She doesn't know anything. She just will grow up, a little toddler, and she'll whine and complain because she doesn't want to eat the food that she'll just be, but she doesn't, it's like, she's a miracle. She's like this unbelievable engineering miracle that, So
for all we know, it took exactly 13.8 billion years. Like if we're the only life on Earth, then that's just how long it took, the entire history of the universe.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know. It might be, that's the thing, is we don't know if it's like, it takes 3 billion years from early life to get to something like a baby, a primate baby. And that's just amazing because it takes so long, but it's common and it happens all over the universe. That could be true. So it's not a miracle that it happened, but it's just incredible, this thing that tends to happen on planets that have photons beaming at them, or where life is unbelievably rare, or we're literally alone, in which case it's the most freak incidents that happen here, like a complete 1 in a quadrillion bigger, like just complete freak thing with these uncertain early molecule that came together that was like the most unlikely thing ever. And then once that started, you end up with, everything around the whole biosphere, because then it got going. We don't know.
Yeah. When you talk, like sometimes you get worked up into a kind of a state of awe.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's so much to blow your mind if you just like think about it for a second.
I think this is something that's really uniquely Tim and freaking great. Like, and I think partially people love your explanations because you put things in super unique ways, but partially like you love being in awe at the world. And
look around at the society you're in, like the streets, and like there's this incredible there's buildings, and there's systems of finance and law and all of this going on in this like intricate meta thing we've built. What the hell is going on? Like, we're a bunch of primates that until recently we're all living in the forest, building nothing, like maybe building a little tiny shelter or like wrapping some fur around us. Like, what the hell? This is not normal. Like, this civilization we're in, this is completely bizarre. If you look at if you zoom out, you're like, until yesterday, basically, nothing like this happened. This just happened. What the hell? So yeah, I think, now I can also just get jaded like anyone else, but I think writing a book like this is helpful for me, and writing a blog in general, because when I want to write about something, I want to then put that hat on, look through that lens of like, what's actually going on here. And that's when suddenly I blow my own mind thinking about it. So yeah. And that's why I like talking to you, by the way, because you also think about this stuff.
I do. My mind is blown constantly by these things. Like, and there's like, even like I would guess that our universe is teeming with life. I know the Fermi paradox and everything, but I like, just for a moment, I'm like, let's say it's not. And then I look outside and there's like a truck, and I'm like, almost 14 billion years of evolution created a truck. Like, the truck is the cutting edge of.
And what if this is the only planet in the whole universe that has something like a truck?
Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is so.
By the way, it's just as crazy. So it's super weird if this is the only truck and we're the only living things and everything is just these dead planets. It's also super crazy, and we're the only consciousness in the whole universe. But what if it's everywhere? What if they are equivalent of trucks? What the hell do other alien trucks look like?
Right.
Like they probably use wheels also, right? They're bound by the same laws of physics. Wheels make sense. Things that were independently, and they know that like going from single cell to multi-cell is probably not a great filter candidate. Great filter is like, what if there's some like leap for that life has to take that's very, very rare, and then that's why we don't see aliens out there, because almost no one gets from simple cell to eukaryotic complex cell, and we happen to, and that's why we're here. Okay, so but single cell to multi-cell is not a candidate because it emerged independently like dozens of times in different places. So I think we can say the same thing. Things that emerged independently here in lots of different continents, if there are lots of aliens, we can probably expect to see some of those things there. Now, maybe, they have different gravity, they have different, atmospheric conditions. They might be made of different, they might not be carbon based as like we are or whatever, but
right.
At least in some, especially if there's a lot of life, the weirdest part to me is like, yes, there might be aliens that are like big giant floating balloons, with like 20 tentacles floating in the clouds. But even stranger is like, what if there's alien planets that if there's billions of alien planets, what's the one that's closest, most similar to us of all of the other ones?
Right.
On like an Earth-like planet, like maybe they have like actual trucks that look really similar. Maybe they have internal combustion engines like that use this. I mean, it's just, that's weird to me. Like it's just an alien planet that's almost like kind of uncanny valley similar to ours.
That's a really good point. I've never thought about that, but it's just as weird. Like, I'm like, what the hell, a truck? And then what if there's like literally billions of independent, like trucks all over the universe? Like, that's so weird. Like that trucks would be like a feature of the universe.
I know. Right. Exactly. Like you look out at the stars and you look at like the Andromeda galaxy. I don't think anyone's thinking about trucks that are in the galaxy, but like there probably are trucks in the Andromeda galaxy. Like probably like there are trillions of trucks in the seems more likely than not. There's like swimming pools and like people, and there's like aliens there's vacations going on. And there's also like, probably students studying astronomy and looking at the Milky Way galaxy, the big one right next to them. And they have a different name for it. There's probably, aliens having dance parties. Like there's like aliens getting drunk and equivalent of that, like in Andromeda, like there's parties going on, but like, it just looks like this quiet, dead spiral to us, but yeah. Sometimes I think that when like, I don't know, watching like, my wife likes watching Great British Baking Show, right? And
my wife
just watching them all sitting there, and they're like baking their food and they're like talking in their British accents, and I'm like the aliens in Andromeda looking at like just the cold, dark, like quiet, silent Milky Way galaxy. This is going on inside of the Great British Baking Show, and like any silly scene you see, sometimes it's just like remind myself like here we are in some room or I'm in some sporting event or something's happening and it's like, or a concert, and it's just like zoom out and you realize that this is like happening in the Milky Way, and I don't know, it's all kind of crazy.
It's so cool. It almost puts me in an altered state. Like I kind of feel like I'm on drugs. Like I'm just like in a dumb joy, like thinking.
And all this is doing, by the way, this isn't like some like, telling you some amazing fiction story or like playing you some incredible music. It's just pointing out like obvious things about reality, things that are obvious once you just think about it for a second. It's just literally looking with clear eyes at like reality for a second and considering what it means, as opposed to just being like so caught up in, I'd have like a 4 p.m. meeting and I got to do this and like, I want to pick up groceries and like, it's just like pausing and just being like lifting your head up for a second, and it's essentially like being on drugs.
Yeah, I love it. Like kids are good for this too. Where like I'm walking along and I'm like, oh, there's these tiny little flowers. Like they're basically weeds, and they're covering a field. And I'm like, wait, there's thousands of tiny little yellow flowers. And for my kids, like those are flowers. They're not like tiny little weeds. They're
right, totally
gorgeous flowers. And then I'm like, flowers, man, that's fucking crazy. Like for whatever reason, like a property of the universe is like if you're like flamboyant and like bright, then you're like things are attracted to you, and that's like good for you. And so like beauty is like this emergent property of the universe, I guess, and it's like cross species and like
right. And then likewise, when you see a sunset and you think it's beautiful, or you see a beautiful girl and you think she's beautiful, like that is billions of years in the making. You're feeling that way, or, you know, at least hundreds of millions of years in the making. Like that stuff runs deep. You know, that's like, it's not, you know, there's obviously a cultural aspect of all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think people find sunsets beautiful all over the world, regardless of their culture. Or they find, you know, a mountain valley with a stream going through it to be beautiful all over the world, because that's like baked into like our DNA that's in our like genome to feel that way, because it, you know, that was a good survival landscape. If you have, you know, high ground, but you also have a stream for water, and you have, you know, and there's lush greenery, like that was a place where we could survive. That was, and if we didn't survive there, we survived better in like a, you know, flat gray desert for whatever reason, then like we would be like, oh my God, look at the beauty of this desert. We would think it's, and we see like a, you know, hill and a mountain and stream, we would think nothing of it, and we'd be barren wasteland or whatever. So yeah, it's
So okay, so this reminds me of like, when you talk about things that have been around for a few 100 million years in our like evolutionary stack. I was thinking about this the other day with like income inequality, because there's like, for a few 100 million years, there's been like, to the victor go the spoils, and this like this structural, not like moral cycle of like the things like this is evolution in some ways, like you were saying, the Darwinian evolution. So yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, there's no rules, there's no fairness, there's no like the actual evolution is just run by physics, right? And physics doesn't care. It's just whatever happens. Like, you know, so a star blows up, goes supernova and blows up planets. It's like the star is going to do that because physics tells it to. It doesn't, it's not like, oh, well, that's wrong. And look out at the animal world, and it's basically the same thing. And then we have we're this weird species who has that. We're part of that. That's deeply baked into us. But then we also have this capacity to like do better and to like think about, wait a second, like those
physics cares through us, but not until us.
It's weird, but also it is physics generating this moral sense in us too. So it's like, it's this very strange thing, but this idea that like those people are just as valuable as us, and it doesn't make sense that it would be okay to do something to them that we don't want them to do to us, is like this. No, and again, I've gotten yelled at before on But Why for claiming this is just human. People are like, animals do this, animals have empathy, maybe a little bit, but like, you know, I don't see too many, you know, I don't know, chimps and you know, really being, you know, I don't know, and on other tribes. And
on the flip side, for the people that are arguing against you, I'm like, I don't know, lots of humans still don't do it. So
like, I mean, most humans deep down, you know, and that's the thing, is we also build these structures of social pressure. I think a lot of people act kind, act good because it is rewarded, and rewarded both externally. People will think you're a good person, they'll like you, versus criticize you and ostracize you. But also internally, you will feel better about yourself because you've had this moral code baked into you. But it doesn't mean that deep down it's happening because you actually feel these things. And then in some cases, I think a lot of people really do. But I think a lot of what we see out in the world is like, then there's these ideologies that influence a lot of it. It's always a struggle to overcome what I call like our primitive mind, which is just, I want to like completely selfishly like survive and reproduce and gather and, you know, acquire resources and have like power over my environment, and protect my young. And like, these are all just like the primitive mind that goes for the chimp too, feels the same way. And that runs deep. And so then we build this entire civilization, which like has all these social rules and social pressure, which is a primitive mind. Actually, you know, you can actually influence a primitive mind with social pressure, to have this set of rules that like just often conflicts with or overrides those things. And then sometimes, you know, doesn't, you know, you can say, you know, ambition going for personal wealth also can enhance the society. Okay, we don't need that many rules there. We don't need to create a society where it's evil to go for personal gain. Okay, but we do want to create a society where it's illegal to do sexual assault. And so, yeah, anyways, there's also just, I think society is just a kind of a weird I think amazing. I mean, I'm so grateful for it. I think it's like incredible. Walking around, seeing all these people in the airport, with their clothes on, walking, all behaving under the same moral codes, and they bump you, and everyone says, "Oh, sorry about that," or "Excuse me." And it's just like we're all like actors on this, like in the society here. Yeah.
I think about that when I run into someone in the woods, like I'm hiking in the Greenbelt in Austin, and I'm like, man, if this was only a few hundred years ago, I'd probably be like, should I kill this person or like
or run?
Yeah.
Right. Totally. But you can trust it because society runs deep through almost everyone. You can't trust everyone. That's why there's criminals, but like you can basically trust almost everyone to not do something crazy. At least in again, that actually varies. We're in a very high trust society. I think there are societies where there's a lot less trust. And I don't think it's that those people are inherently less trusting people. I think that the ideology that has like currently subsumed their society doesn't bake in the trust as well. It's also just kind of interesting. There's a lot of sociology to think about when,
Well, so this takes me to like right now we have this like, UpTrust is like, the primitive mind is the thing that we optimized to like reward on social media. And we want to do something else. We want to say, okay, let's bring the primitive mind. It can still be rewarded, but we're going to do it in such a way that everyone's better off. And like, you're a public persona, you write, what do you do? How do you keep from getting audience captured, from just having that primitive mind reward signal, like drive you in a direction you don't want?
Well, I think my job is easier than yours. And that like, I think if you're just a solo blogger, I think there are solo bloggers, just like there's solo musicians or, whatever, authors or who started off with the early on, it was like, I need to get big. So I need to do stuff that's popular, even though I don't like it. And that's when you run into this problem, because now you're either stuck doing that forever, because the people you attract now happen to be people who like the thing you're doing. The people who like what you really wanted to do, they don't even know who you are because they haven't been doing that thing. Yeah. So now if you want to start doing what you really like doing, unless it's pretty similar, you're probably going to have a problem, because your audience is going to say, what the hell? This isn't what I'm here for. This isn't what you do. You've changed, and the people who really like you probably, you might be able to shift audiences, but that's really hard. It becomes more and more resistance to that as it gets bigger. I think a lot of solo people today do what I did, which is just like from the beginning, pretty much furiously do what you actually want to do. And when you do that, it's just kind of easy, because like I attract the kind of people, not just who like the specific things I do. Like I never wrote about tech till like the third year of Wait But Why. I wrote about science. I wrote about, kind of like just society, observational kind of comedy type stuff. I wrote about psychology and relationships and stuff. But I attracted the kind of people that tend to find the same things interesting that I do. Yeah. So now when it's time to write, when I learn about AI, and I'm like, oh, I need to write about this, even though I didn't have people say this isn't what you do, because I had already made it clear I do lots of different things. Yeah. And I had attracted the kind of people that are pretty similar in interests. And so when I did that, if I was interested in it, it turns out they were too, and it was no surprise. So I think it's pretty easy as a blogger to just follow your own interests, and then you attract an audience that, you're captured by the right audience. Like there's no capture there. You're free to do your thing because they want that, because that's who you've attracted. You have like the hardest job in the world, which is like you said, these social media companies, they at least the first round of them was like going down the junk food aisle, the cereal aisle at the grocery store. You see like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like Lucky Charms, and all these like colorful things, or like the candy aisle, right? And you see and that's just companies trying to surpass I would call your higher mind, and just sell directly to the primitive mind. Get the primitive mind, like wake it up and say, oh, I want that. And then you take over. It's very powerful. And then they make billions of dollars because they're so good at that, because the primitive minds are easy to trick. And I think the very early social media, actually, I think was actually quite high-minded. Like Button, this is John Haidt's research, and other people have really, John Ronson also has a great book on this and a great TED Talk. But they're very early rounds. I don't know, before 2008, something like that, before 2009. there was no like button. There really wasn't even a share button. There wasn't retweet as much. I don't think that came in a little bit later. And so it was much more just like friendly, and like you would almost like admit stuff that was embarrassing about you, and people would be like, "Oh my God, I do that too." But what? It was very like happy place. It was John Ronson calls it like it was like a de-shaming place. It was a place of like the opposite of like what it's become, which, you have those new things. Now you're suddenly incentivizing totally different behavior. The algorithm starts favoring traffic and virality. And turns out what makes a post go viral is outrage, but more than anything, or really catering to a political tribe or whatever. And so you can just see in this one little experiment, the best of humanity can come out if it's the right system, if it's the right environment, with its right incentives, it brings out our great side, and everyone loves being there, and it's really nice. Tweak a few of the settings, and suddenly the primitive minds wake up because they get really excited because now there's all these new candy wrappers appealing to them, and you end up with a pretty shitty environment. It's not all bad. I follow a lot of awesome accounts on X that are totally, high-minded. They're funny. They talk about science. They talk about history, whatever. But you can't help. And you end up on the For You page, and like, what are you going to see? You're probably going to see a bunch of pretty sensationalist, bombastic type things that are kind of designed to make you emotional in a not great way.
Recently on my For You page, I'm getting the impression that every single person in the world is starting $1 billion company using Claudebot.
Yeah, totally. And also, and it's probably because you started by sharing a couple of things. I mean, you bookmarked a couple of things. You liked a couple of posts. Like, it's a little bit, I think it's just a little heavy-handed right now. And I will give X credit for like, they're trying stuff. At least they came up with community notes. Like, you have the Grok button next to every post where you can click it and it can summarize or tell you if it's fake or not. These are some tools that are like made, modern for the modern world, for the AI slop world. And I think I see them trying, at least, right? But they have so much baggage there with just the kind of culture that's been built there.
It's a lot of
and it's a little heavy-handed. Like you said, you click on like, what I don't like is when I'm on X and I start to feel like, wow, on this really controversial topic, everyone agrees with me. Wow, look at this, one after the other. I wrote a book on this. I'm like aware enough, at least, to say I'm in an algorithmic bubble, and it makes me want to leave the site. I think a lot of people don't even know about this. They just think, see, everyone agrees with me, I'm so right, and it just makes them feel like so confident, which is all false confidence, right? It's false. So anyway, the reason I'm saying your job is so hard is because you have to now, in a world where this has become the norm, you're trying to reinvent like health food again,
right?
In a world that like it's evolved out of that, and now it's like, but I think we need it so badly. Is like, whether it's X coming up with innovations, or Threads or whatever, or startups to force it, and maybe this, but we need some mechanism of like pushing this thing to a better place. Yeah.
I mean, so like when you wrote "What's Our Problem," I think you were kind of like, this is the biggest issue facing civilization. Has that changed as you've like zoomed out and put so much time?
Well, I think it's not that it's the biggest issue in itself, like culture war or whatever. It's that the issues that will determine our future, like AI governance and how those two things interact, or bioweapons and how we protect against those. What are we going to do with genetic engineering as it gets better and better? Like, these are actually going to take us anywhere from like full utopia to like full extinction. Like, the range is that big, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the reason I focused in that book specifically on like the kind of on our how politics makes smart people dumb, basically, and how it was doing so right now, is that our societies around us were not built by individual humans. Individual humans just aren't that smart. Put a human alone in the forest, next to a chimp alone in the forest. I might bet on the chimp like surviving more. Like I don't think humans are that. They're very smart in some ways, but society was built by this collective human superorganism that happens from our brains connecting together. That's why we have all this science and tech and magical knowledge, and why it's moved so quickly. And the human superbrain, for the same reasons we were talking about in social media, in certain environments, that's encouraging certain kinds of discourse and certain, a culture of kind of disagreement and high-minded discourse, you end up with the superbrain being smarter than any one human. And when mob mentality takes over, tribalism takes over, the superbrain basically shuts off, and you just end up with this big, stomping giants trying to like cudgel each other. That's what the macro emergent thing becomes. And so I illustrate these two giants in my book, and it's like, to me, it's like the smart superorganism can do anything. I have full faith that the smart full superorganism can get us safely to the next chapter. Doesn't mean that it can create AI alignment, but it can figure out if it can, and it can figure out if it's a fool's errand right now, and then stop. And it can make wise decisions, and it can, the dumb giants, they will drive us right off a cliff as a species. They have no foresight. It was bad diplomats and tribal thinking that got World War I going. So it's just like these things are dumb. They can't see it 2 feet in front of their face, and they will drive our species right off a cliff. They really will. So the culture comes back into the culture war. The culture war to me is a battle, not of left and right. I think it's a battle of this, what I call like low rung, if it's a ladder, like this low rung tribal mobbish kind of just culture, discourse, whatever that emerges from our primitive minds banding together, versus this higher mind that's in all of our heads trying to wrest control back, because this low rung thing has been on the rise. And that's that is how that goes is what will determine if the big brain is smart and gets us, we're safe in its hands to the future, or we're going to drive off a cliff. That's why I think it's the most important thing, not because the specific cultural war things we're fighting about are the most important thing on earth right now.
Yeah. So it reminds me, like, second time I want to plug Ken Wilber Integral Theory to you, because I think he kind of makes a similar argument, and in a more complicated.
Is this theory of everything?
Yeah, that's a good.
Is that the one? Everyone recommends this to me. You have, I think, a couple times. Another friend has a few times. Someone else. Is that the book I should read? It's
a good one. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good one to start. So, like, because basically, it's a similar. For example, with this thing, he just adds a couple. It's the same model, but instead of low and high, you'll have egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric thinking, and how they're fighting. Like they're each trying to dominate. So egocentric is the lower, the ethnocentric is the tribal, and the world is somebody who's more like objective. And he adds another one that's kind of pluralistic, which is also fighting against so this is the kind of like Steven Pinker is very objectivistic, and then you have someone else saying, well, whatever. I don't want to go into too many of the details. I think you're more interesting in this case than me. So yeah. Sorry. I don't know. I'm going on a rant. Don't get me started on an integral rant. It'll be bad.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, I think we need as many people as possible trying to like frame this kind of thing, so it becomes just common, something we think about.
Yeah.
Because the first step, if you want to make a healthier society, is like educate people on nutrition, right? Just like get people to understand that when like it says like low fat wheat thins, like heart healthy, that's not good for you to eat. Doesn't matter that it says that. Just like basic things like, so it's like and then when you build awareness, then that's the first step. Now like behavior can change. Now like people can start talking to each, discourse can happen about it. Like people can pressure each other to do the right thing. And it's that we're at most vulnerable when it's that early phase, like, 1950s, my mom said that they all ate white bread all the time because it said enriched on it and everyone thought it was healthy, right? So there's that early phase when you can kind of fool people for a while before like they catch on.
Yeah.
And with nutrition, that's one thing. It's not going to end our civilization. But I think if tribalism is, we're falling into like what the every few generations tribal kind of moral panic era that we seem to be kind of in the midst of. In this particular case, because of the technology at play, we might not have the luxury of making our mistakes, then wising up, and then coming to a better place for a while in this kind of cyclical thing society does, because the stakes are so high right now that like if we fall into one of these at this particular time, we might just drive ourselves off a cliff or just completely collapse our society. So I think there's an urgency that even more so than you could argue that there was an urgency back in the 50s with like McCarthyism and the Red Scare and all of this at a time when like nuclear weapons were existential. It's I think this is maybe an even more high stakes version of that time.
Yeah, there's something interesting about there's a law of mad science that talks about this thing, but basically it takes a certain kind of high-minded thinking to build the science and pass it on, to build nuclear weapons and to eventually build AI. But once the artifacts are built, it doesn't require that level of high-mindedness to use them. The low-minded entity, person, whatever, can take advantage of that and wreak havoc upon the world.
Yeah. It's easy to destroy. You have all these stories, whether it's like the Bronze Age collapse or the collapse of the Roman Empire, so many others, basically every empire in history. I mean, it's like what takes centuries to build can be literally like burned down. The ultimate example is like a library that literally isn't centuries in the making is burned down in 1 hour. I mean, and we see this in our toddlers too, where they're like,
yes, we spend like hours building a Lego thing, and they're like,
yes,
can you build it again?
Exactly. and that's why we don't want our super brains behaving like toddlers.
Right.
Culture war makes us into a macro toddler, and then we see how macro toddlers behave. They knock things down with no foresight and no understanding of what they're doing. That's honestly how we should think of the super brain that emerges from the culture war, from really tribal thinking, is literally like as unimpressive as our toddlers are. And again, in the past, it was like, okay, this civilization, Carthage, right? Just like name any, look how quickly it was just burned to the ground. And at least in that case, most of the people might die or become refugees and live the rest of their lives like homeless. But at least the species persisted. The planet was okay. And now, if we do this wrong, like it's the end for all humans. It's even higher stakes. And by the way, even if it weren't, like just our own civilization collapsing through like a destructive World War III or something, even if there was no AI, and even if there were no nukes, but it was just going to be this giant, massive, a coup takes over the government and institutes a totalitarian dictator, and then now we live in a military dictatorship. That's awful. Like it's like that's way less bad than some of the things that people are predicting with all this godlike tech. But even just that, it's been so good for so long that we just think this is normal. This is how things are. This is only how things are because people act like adults, generation after generation after generation, to uphold it and to and it's like if you watch any system, any human-built system, just not get maintenance for a month, it just totally starts to deteriorate. Like all these things work, the water runs and like the heat turns on and the streetlights work only because there's a constant frenzy of like, picture like ants in an ant, just like people maintaining these things. This whole thing was only upheld by like, it's like the default in the universe is entropy, like is that this thing would just crumble and collapse and we would go back to the state of nature where it would just be, can you you might have to murder that person to get food for you. And if you don't, they might do. We should be so scared. I just want people to feel a little more fear. Thank God for this society. And like, we have to do everything we can to heal. That's what I want people to think, instead of thinking like, the people who are like, Western civilization is evil, and I'm just like, I can't. Like those people are going to drive us off a cliff. And then by the time they realize, I was wrong, like it's too late, And so we have to, I don't know.
And interesting. So there's like right there when you pause, it's like you don't want to tribalize against them, or what has you?
I mean, it's. I want to. There's different forms of tribalism, right? There's, and I think if you want to define tribalism as, there's the kind that says that dehumanizes the other and enforces conformity within your ranks, and does not change its mind, very rigid, and is very small-minded and short-sighted, where it's like beating the other team is the only thing that you could think about, and everything is through that lens. That is bad, purely bad. I don't think anything good comes from that. Maybe if you're in a totalitarian dictatorship and you need to get enough people on board to topple the king, to topple the dictator, maybe you want people in that mode. I mean, that's a very rare case. I think in a society like modern America, there's nothing good that comes from the tribal mindset. It will always be here, but what we want to do is contain it and have it more on the fringes, and have it not be hijacking institutions like it did over the last decade.
Right.
Now, if I'm othering the people I'm talking about, I think, first of all, it's not that I'm above this. I can definitely fall into that zone with the people I get frustrated with.
But you find
my goal isn't to have no form of us and them. It's to do it in the high-minded way, which is to say these aren't evil people. They're not like subhuman. They're caught up in something bad, and to think that the enemy is not them, but the mind virus that is creating this behavior and the mentality. And likewise, to continue to challenge my own beliefs about all these things, and to try to surround myself with disagreement, and to be willing to change my mind. That's my goal. And if I'm doing that, the fact that I'm still saying that these people and these people's behavior and thinking is the problem, I think that, if you want to call that tribalism, I think that's okay. But that's, there's a very different thing from the high-minded kind of, trying to win the battles of ideas in society, and identifying groups of people that are caught up in the wrong ones, in your opinion. That's just so different than the kind that's like, just, you can see it. You'll see it with the endless hypocrisy. The high-minded kind of tribalism, it sticks with principles. If a certain political party or group of people or whatever starts acting in a way that goes against the principles you have, you suddenly say, well, they're not my people anymore. It's easy. I'm not with them anymore.
Right.
When you're in the wrong mindset, the low rung tribalism, wherever this group is me, I am them, we are the good guys.
Yeah.
And we are perfect. Our ideas are perfect. We're perfectly moral. If only we were in charge, everything would be perfect, right? That's this childish, really bad tribal mindset. That group can go anywhere. It can flip sides. It can do the exact opposite thing that it said 2 weeks ago, because there's different parties involved, but it's the same. And you'll just see they'll stick with it, right? They'll never, the principles mean nothing. All that matters is tribe. So what you'll see is the telltale sign is rank hypocrisy, just incredible hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Just, oh my God, you had the exact opposite reaction when it was the other people doing the same thing, right? And again, no one is above this. I find myself doing this. I think a leg up over some people, because at least I don't think that's okay. I catch myself and I say, you're doing that thing, stop. And I think, again, awareness is, at least it can help you spend more of your time in the high rungs than in the low rungs.
This is a great tie into a question that came in, which is basically about people who get really successful and then get surrounded by people that don't challenge them. And it's really relevant to my world. I've seen this happen to a lot of like self-help type people. I mean, it's political, but it's also like gurus and spiritual. Like, suddenly the only people you attract are people who think like you, and you may think you're high-minded, but you end up being in this kind of really subtle hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think there's like kind of a helium balloon. If there's I have this graph I like to use, which is just like conviction and knowledge, and you want to be on the dotted line, right? You want your how strongly you feel right to be accurate, to be match how much you are right. And when you surround yourself in an echo chamber where everyone's agreeing with you, you're almost always just going to drift. It's like a helium balloon. I think it is like pulling you up into unearned conviction. So here's conviction. You're going to go higher, even though your knowledge is not getting more, right? You're going to be up in that part versus you want to be on the dotted line. But I think it is our nature, and there's a primitive mind in our head that really just wants to identify with certain ideas and then doesn't want to challenge them and just wants to feel right? It feels really good to feel right. And it's just like trying to have discipline in your diet. It's like you have to work hard to not do these things. Just like you have to work hard not to eat too much sugar. You have to work hard to not to get into the arrogant zone, where you have unearned, you have strongly felt weakly supported beliefs. But like food, if I have junk food all around my house, it's going to be a lot harder. That's like surrounding yourself in an echo chamber. It's like now you're in a candy store. You're living in a candy store. You're trying to avoid sugar. Like good luck. If you surround yourself by people who just are not like that, who disagree for sport, who love to call out, I will give myself credit here. I'm on a bunch of text threads, and there's nothing my friends love more than to tell me catch me on being biased. I mean, I do it to them too. To catch each other on bias or hypocrisy, to call out inconsistency. And when someone will put out an opinion about some big news event, it's almost like someone else will just disagree for sport, because when everyone agrees, it's like we move on. It's boring. Yeah. And that environment is like being surrounded in a kitchen with healthy food. It's gonna be a lot easier to avoid the sugar. And then it becomes more habitual. You start to just train your mind to think that way, to always pause. Am I being biased? Am I doing this? Am I doing this? If you're in an echo chamber, no one's ever calling anyone out in bias. Everyone's biased. No one can even see it. So no one is calling themselves out on it. And but you're now really, instead of having a support group to help you not, drift into arrogance, you have a bunch of people encouraging it.
Right. Yeah, I saw this a lot in the pandemic. I mean, obviously there was a different kind of polarization happening there with vaccines and stuff, but I remember, like, I'm surrounded by people who, there's some people who are like neutral on Trump, some who are very positive, some who are very negative. And the people who were like really negative, for example, just couldn't understand how a smart, like caring person could possibly vote, for this horrific guy in their view. And it was like they literally couldn't see it. And it made sense they couldn't see it because they didn't talk to anybody who was that way.
So all they were seeing is the kind of media portrayed caricature of that person, which is going to be, the media is going to portray the Trump voter as the worst version of itself, or a very, bad version of itself. It's going to also sensationalize the headlines about the worst things that those people do. And likewise for the other side.
Exactly.
And so what I like about my text threads is it's not that we always disagree. It's like there can be one person who likes Trump and 5 people who don't. Yeah. And it's not that it's always going to be 3-3 or whatever. Yeah. It can be 5 people that cannot stand Trump and 1 person that does. But the difference is in a high rung in a low rung environment, that person who likes Trump wouldn't even probably say it, because if they did, they get the cold shoulder. People would be mean and maybe ostracize and maybe kick them out of the group. Or they would just get really personal and mean with that person. I mean, it's just all this deep social incentive to not say it. In a high rung environment, even if you're the one, it's extra fun being the one person who disagrees, because you're not going to get people be angry at you personally. If almost everyone's like, oh, here's a fun game. Okay, tell me why you like Trump. Like, try to convince me. And then people say, and then someone else will be like, that's just patently false. Look at these statistics. But no one is mad at each other, right? It can be a heated argument, but it's not a fight. That's a huge difference. In a low rung environment, there's no such thing. The polite behavior is to obviously agree. Good people in behavior. When you disagree with the sacred ideas in the group, you're a terrible person. We're in a fight. It's really awkward. I can't believe you. We just do we have to make up after this? In a high rung environment, it's like we're just constantly disagreeing, and no one's in a fight. We're all laughing about the whole thing, even if you think the person's being insane. It's like, great, here's a challenge. So there's just such a clear difference to me. Once you start getting these 2 environments in your head, I call one the idea lab, the high rung environment. It's like where ideas are treated like science experiments, and the low rung, and it's just, we already have a word, it's the echo chamber. And like, once you have these turn, and that's why, social media, I get annoyed when I'm like, everyone agrees with me on this. Yeah. I can see through it. I say the algorithm is putting me in an echo chamber because I forwarded a couple things, so it knows how I feel. And now it's almost like insulting. I'm like, you think I'm that dumb that I'm like, yeah, like I want to see all these people dunking on the people I'm mad at. Like, no, that's not interesting.
Yeah.
And again, because it's like being in a candy store. It's not like I have perfect discipline. I'm going to start feeling a little, probably more arrogant about my opinion if I stay there. I'm going to start probably dehumanizing the other side. Because I'm just going to be seeing this really worse version of people who disagree with me. And I don't want that. Like, get out of here. Just like the same exact way. I'm like, don't bring junk food into my kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. The candy metaphor is really great because I never eaten much candy, but now that I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, like there's a lot of candy around. There's Halloween candy, and I'm eating a lot more candy these days.
I'm exactly disciplined enough. I'm like right in this point. I'm disciplined enough to not buy unhealthy groceries or like order unhealthy food for like lunch on delivery.
Yeah.
I don't like, because my system too, it has to, the higher mind needs to be involved to make that decision because it's kind of like an active decision. But I'm exactly not disciplined enough where if it's there, if there's a container of brownies someone made and it's sitting on my counter, I will eat one every time I walk by. I just will.
Yeah.
And I accept that about myself. I'm just not that grown up when it comes to this stuff. Like I can't, and I see other people, I would go out to dinner and it's some family style and some really, gluttonous thing comes by, and I just watch friends pass it up and say, oh, I don't, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that. Of course I'm or like dessert comes at like a lunch you're at, and dessert, and it's this big piece of cake. And I just see people not touch it. And I can't not. I'm just not disciplined. So
sometimes it's not discipline, it's like shame or an introjected voice of their mom saying like, if you're
I think I don't feel, I'm not shamed. I think my procrastination problems in general, like the areas in which I am a baby, I think do emerge from like, I don't think I'm ashamed enough about it. I think a little shame would help me more. And I think
yeah. So it's interesting with the tribalism and the kind of being surrounded by people who think like you and yes men and women and stuff. There's two things I'm hearing there. One, oops, I lost Tim. Oops, I got Tim back. Yeah, there's two things there. One is the awareness. Like there's a kind of like, you have to actually seek out and like cultivate friendships, conversations, text threads that are both like have the culture that allows for that sort of thing, and and like people who have different opinions. And then there's
I think you can also lead it. Like I think the same exact group of 5 people, maybe you take a group of 5 friends on a text thread. There's millions of those in the world. I think some are just everyone in there is just way too low rung about stuff. It's gonna always be alone. And then some ways like these people are so evolved, like there's no way they're gonna. But I think most can kind of go either way. And sometimes it's just one ringleader. One person starts being really tribal, and it's like there's a power struggle over the group's dynamic, over the group's culture, and it's like either the group will kind of, if that person has enough clout, well, like the people will start acting like sidekicks, and suddenly the whole group becomes like, we all have to agree because I want to be like, thought of as one of the good people here. And then that same thing, one person can be a ringleader and start by example, just arguing a certain way, or when they get challenged, they behave in a certain way. And then I think other people mimic it. So I think the same exact group can kind of drift in and out of this. And I think just, people should realize they have the agency a lot of the time too. I alone can bring this group culture in a certain place. Can start driving it in a certain place, and then it can take on a life of its own. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, exactly. I love it. Great, thank you. It's good interruption. It takes me to a different place. I forgot what I was saying before, but like this is something that we explicitly train, like in like relateful sessions, for example, the thing we call flow, and it's explicit, and we cultivate it, and we encourage it, and it's still hard for people to do, even when it's absolutely like, guys, remember, like if there's something you want, like you're part of the group, you're like, even the structure, the culture, whatever. And people, it's just that wanting to belong, to do things right, to get the approval of the people who have power or status. Like those pressures are so high that we really have to like continuously cultivate that capacity.
I mean, look, we evolved in environments where there was basically one leader and lots of followers, I think a lot of the time. Or a few leaders and many, many more followers. So most of us, there's a big part of all of us that just has the inclination to follow, to please, and to fit it. And I think that that's not a bad thing in a lot of situations. If you're an employee at a company, that probably makes you a great employee. Like it can make you, I think it's also just, it's good behavior in a lot of situations to act that
Right.
way. I think that same instinct should be, we should be wary of it when it comes to, if that toggle is up if that slider is up too high in our heads, we will start to conform with really bad things that don't actually fit with our principles. We'll start to not even know who we are and what our principles are, because we're all entirely focused on, I need to be part of this group. And it's like, you're forgetting who you are and what are you even doing here. And it's like, that's not good. I don't think that makes you a happy person either when you get to that level. I think it feels very low. You feel deep, even though you might have this arrogant opinions, like we're so good, you personally end up feeling a very, a deep lack of confidence where, you would never want to get on a stage one-on-one and debate someone in front of other people about, you start to feel like, I don't really know, but I just know that they're right. I don't know, but I know that I'm right on this because that's what they said, and they're right about this stuff. That's not, you don't want to be there. That's not a good place to be. And give your brain a little more credit than this. Like, you're not using this amazing tool in your head. So yeah,
especially in a modern world. Like it may be that if we lived in a time and place where like conformity was the way, then maybe I would have security and confidence, but we're just in a much more complex world.
Yeah, it's like, we can do better. I mean, a long time ago, it was probably like, if you decide that you're going to challenge the tribe, you're going to be out of the tribe and you're going to die. You're going to starve. Like, that's still baked into us, but it doesn't make any sense today. Like we can be a little more courageous than that. We can be a little more independent than that.
So we covered kind of the history, we covered now, and then the other thing is, like, there's the future, and you've just done some really cool research. I don't know, like, do you feel like, I'd love to just hear what your thoughts are, and also how you relate to it. Like, are you like, shit, I should be like telling people what they ought to do, or you're like, that's not really my role. My role is to name stuff. Like,
my role is with the future, and it will continue to be this way, is to play the role of a friend at a table with other friends, except I just spent 3 weeks reading about this topic that everyone should know about, but they don't know about yet, or they don't know as much as I do, because I've just spent 3 weeks reading about it. And now I can be like, no, here's the situation. And again, not to come to those friends and say, here's the answer, but to say, especially with future, no one knows the answers, but there are a lot of very interesting, strong opinions that disagree with each other. And I don't think that, I think it's above my pay grade to decide who's right. Are the AI doomers more right than the accelerationist, or that, I might have my hunches, but that's not, I think what's more interesting for the reader and more valuable is not necessarily, I mean, I throw in my hunches usually at the end, I'll drop them in, but it's not the crux of what I'm writing about, which is, let's steel man. What do they think? What's the best version of what they think? How about them? How about them? How about them? And also, but that's almost like later. It's before that is even, what is this topic? What's the history of it? How do we get here? What are people even scared of? What could go wrong? What could go right? Like, what are the good possibilities? And just like orient people, like an orientation, just like a freshman orientation about a bunch of different topics, not just AI, since especially that one is almost less needed because it's so in the news. But 20 different topics within biotech that all need to be understood and discussed, and they're fascinating and they're exciting and they're scary, and energy and transportation and embryology. I mean, there's just so many different areas of future being built right now, and so it's just explain what's going on, explain how we got here, like talk about some of the science, talk about some of the engineering, let's use some imagination. Like, let's imagine what life could be like if things go well with this technology versus things go badly. Like, play it out. I actually have fiction vignettes in the book to do that. And then, like, okay, what do the skeptics say? What are the bullish people say about it? And and that's my job. And it
Yeah.
should be fun along the way. If it's not fun to read and it's not interesting or funny at all times, that's my goal. I don't think I'll succeed fully at that, but like my goal is that everything is either interesting or funny or both. And because if I can't hook people, then it's not going to reach people, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
if you can have it be an enjoyable experience to read it while also doing these things, that's my full job. If I can do that, that's when I succeeded. Sometimes I try to do that and it just doesn't go anywhere because I failed at the interesting / funny thing. Or I didn't explain it very well, which I guess is not being interesting. But when I have succeeded, I think the good I've done there is helped orient people, help more people just have a clear mental model in their head of something that they didn't before, so that they can now understand the news headlines about that thing better, and it makes more sense, and they can go share it now. They can continue to pass that information forward and help orient their friends. Because I always, like I said before, I think awareness is step one. I think if people are at least just oriented. I mean, again, if you're not oriented, nothing else. Like then, the worst part is when you start having tribal opinions on something like AI before people are oriented, and now people start to have these opinions and they still don't even know what they're talking about. So they can't even make informed opinions. They're just, and they don't have the confidence to. So they're just following these are my people. So whatever they say is what I believe. We really don't want that. We want awareness first, then opinions can start. So. Yeah, I think it's just a huge low-hanging fruit with just helping people to zoom out and see what the hell's actually going on in our world right now.
Right. It's crazy. I mean, it seems like we're in almost like a Cambrian explosion of like futurism or something like that we really like can't actually predict where things are going to be in a pretty short time.
No, I mean, I think when the internet started, right? Like, were people really predicting Uber, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
just like, that the taxi industry was going to go down. When like electricity first came around, did people really predict like movies and telecommunications revolution and all the jobs that came from those, and like radio and TV back in the 1880s? Like, probably not. When the car came around, were people also thinking it was going to create all these jobs with like Walmart and Suburbia and like Holiday and McDonald's, all these things that only existed once cars started to exist. So I think there's always both good and bad unintended things. Totally, you can't connect the dots to go from early internet to Uber. It's like you need to connect like you need smartphones in there, you need apps, you need so you need to connect all these dots forward, and we're not good at connecting more than like maybe one. And even the next one is often hard. But like some of these, when things are moving quickly, like today, I think it's like 2035, we might be 7 dots ahead by then.
Right.
We can't do that. We don't know how you can try. Someone will be right in their predictions. But a broken clock is right twice a day. If you have thousands of smart people making predictions, like someone will seem like a genius. Doesn't mean they really are. They might have gotten lucky, or they are, but there's just no way to know who that person is.
Right.
So yeah, I think predicting the future it's worth playing out different scenarios so that you can have the proper level of holy shit feeling about the stakes, about the fear you should have, and the excitement about the good things and what we have to lose if we don't get there. So I think it's helpful, but I don't think we should assume that any one predictor this is what's going to happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. With cars, for example, I think about like how much of the Earth's surface we've like paved. And like, if you were in the 1880s, you'd be like, come on, man, like the amount of infrastructure that you have to, and like how expensive it is to like make a mile of highway. If somebody could do the math, it'd be like, there's just no fucking way that you're going to have this much highway in the world. It's impossible. And yet here we are.
People say right now, there's no way you're going to go to the stars. They're too far away.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to get 1 million people to live on Mars. It's not, you can't even breathe the atmosphere.
Right. Exactly.
There's no way people are going to live to 500 years old. Like no one's ever even lived past 120.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe not all of those, but maybe not all of those.
No, definitely not all of them. The point is that any one of these, I don't ever say never to any of them though. Yeah. Some of them will, some crazy shit will come true that like, the thought experiment, easy one, is take George Washington here for a day and show him around.
Yeah.
Or just go back to 1700s and describe today's world to people, and they would not believe you about most stuff. They would even like something like the internet is so many steps away for them. They didn't even have electricity yet. So something like the internet, or like social media, they could not understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we might see that level of progress in our lifetimes. I would say we probably will. So we could go forward in our own lifetimes in a time machine to a later point and probably be so blown away that we don't even know, like if someone from then tried to tell us, we wouldn't believe them. Like some things, yeah.
Right. How do you parent with this?
I mean, a toddler and a baby, I'm just spending time with them, loving them, and trying to make them laugh is kind of like, it's quite simple right now. As far as like later, I think I just want to encourage like independent thinking and like confidence in learning and like willing and like a habit of being willing to change your mind. High rung thinking, basically. I think that the faster the world is moving, the more the high rung thinking is important for both keeping yourself safe, for succeeding, for achieving what you want in a world that's different than it was 3 months ago. You need to be able to continually adjust, and you need confident reasoning skills, independent reasoning skills to do that. If all you can do is look at conventional wisdom and look at what people around you are doing and saying, that's going to lag behind. It always is. It's always the independent thinkers that figure some shit out first. Then slowly everyone else starts to get there. So I want them to be people that can independently come to conclusions. And then ideally, when conventional wisdom disagrees with those, to cautiously trust their own viewpoints. Still, putting that as a piece of information. Okay, conventional wisdom disagrees. I should acknowledge that's there. Maybe I'm wrong. I should keep looking at it, as opposed to saying, oh, everyone's lying to me. They're all wrong. I'm smarter than them. You don't want to be there, but you don't want to be saying, oh, well, no one else thinks this, so I must be wrong. You don't want that either, because independent reasoning of a fairly intelligent person is so often smarter than conventional wisdom, which just lags and is slow and is, so that's I think, as far as like talking about, there's a lot of other values I want them raised with and other things, but as far as it applies to the rapidly changing technological future and sociological future, like maybe no one's going to college. Like I want them to be reasoning from first principles about what they should do from 18 to 22 and not necessarily just doing what everyone else is doing.
There's such an interesting tension there. It's similar to where you're like, okay, on the one hand, the like humanity is so much smarter than any given human, partially because of these conventions. And yet it's also true that like any individual given human needs to be able to think for themselves. But then they should draw from humanity in how best to think for yourself.
There's a balance there. And I think you should think of it as your brain is doing a dance with all that conventional wisdom. And sometimes you're going to be smarter than it. Sometimes it's going to be actually wise and worth listening to. And to try to get better and better at trying to tell the difference between the two, but not having any fealty to either one, complete, utter fealty to one over the other. But I think when in doubt, trust your own reasoning is what I would say. How about you? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it for me is like the same thing you're saying, and I thought very literally, like, I don't expect them to go to college, and I think about initiation ceremonies and like how we don't have those, and what happens when people don't have those, and what are good ceremonies. But a lot of it for me is like, what are some of the individual, like, I have a habit I have been working on of like assuming that I know what someone's talking about, because maybe I kind of know, or maybe I can like make enough of an inference to get it. And it's just like socially much better to be like, yeah. And then I'm like, wait, hold on. I want to build a habit of personally being like, okay, actually, I don't know what you meant there. Or I think I know what you meant, but I can't explain it myself. If somebody else asked me, I would be able to repeat your words, and I have no working model of it.
Totally. And I think that also signals to the person you're talking to that you are engaged.
Yeah.
And like when someone does that to me, I light up and I get more energetic because I'm like, oh, this person is really, we're not just, they're really, okay, let's get into it. Like, what don't you understand? Like, let's talk about it. Like, I personally like that. I think I like those kind of people. I think it just shows like a actual curiosity and an authentic engagement. On that note, I'll ask you, what do you mean by initiation ceremonies?
Oh yeah. Like, for most of history, people like tribes had all these like really intense woundings that like, you know, there's the classic like stick your hand in a glove of bullet ants.
Oh my God. Those YouTube videos are all the like Americans trying to like fight for clout who went down there and did that. Those are brutal YouTube videos to watch.
Oh.
And then they're all trying to like one up each other with how long they can keep it on and like how much they can not show their pain. And it's like,
oh my God. So there's some really weird stuff. Like there's like, that one's like, yeah, that would make sense. But then I looked into this at some point years ago. Like there are tribes where it's like, okay, you got to lock all the young men in a hut for 30 days and they all have to drink each other's like piss and semen and feces. And like, you know, just, and like why?
Bad.
It was bad. So I don't know, like some of these you're like, why? Obviously I don't want to do that. But there's the pattern of being like, look, oh, another intense one. I think it was the Navajo where like, okay, you have to take so much wachuma or some local drug that you literally can't remember your own name anymore. And that's it. You're no longer a boy or a girl in this case. Like you get a new name and you're now a new person. You're an adult and you have different responsibilities and you have different things that are expected of you. And there's something there where I feel like, yeah, I don't want my kids to, I'm not going to lock them in a hut and ask them to do something.
I totally know what you're saying though. Like something that, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So something that, that makes, I don't know, some meaningful landmark that says you're not a child anymore and you shouldn't behave like one. You're an adult now. Because I think right now, I think there are some nice things about the fact that we have 25-year-old overgrown children in our society. I do. I think like there's something nice about getting to be a curious, exploratory, immature, fun-having child for longer. I don't think it's good if everyone's a serious, you know, the 13-year-old was stood on his face from 1880. The picture is, dead serious. I don't think we want that.
No.
And I think kids should explore and kind of feel like kids until they're, I don't know, 18 to 22, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But I think there's got to be some moment when you start to say like, I need to be better than I was. Like, and I think a perfect example is stuff like, again, to beat the drum again, just like political tribalism. What I want to encourage is for people to think of that as really silly, childish behavior, and kind of, it should be kind of embarrassing and, you know, shameful to be doing that beyond a certain age.
Yeah.
I think, and you're really, once you hit your mid 20s, I think if you're still doing that, like, you know, it should be viewed, you know, like the way people view, and again, not that it's necessarily wrong, but people do look down upon a 28-year-old living in their parents' house, not making any money. Right. And I think it should kind of seem like that. I think like a 28-year-old who's being super culture warrior on X or whatever, or on Instagram, or on TikTok, and or people who are just watching those videos and believing it and being, I just think that, and right now that's not what happens at all. You have boomers, you have 50, 40-year-olds, 30-year-olds. I mean, just throughout the society acting like children. And I think we have a lack of shame around that and a lack of embarrassment around that. You know, it's not even seen as what I don't know. So I think. So anyway, to not get back to that, but the initiation rituals, I think stuff like that is good. I think it doesn't have to be so ridiculously crazy, but
right. I
like what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So like on that one, it's like, there's what we end up doing is self-initiating. Either we don't initiate, like you're saying, or you self-initiate, and self-initiations are almost always worse. They're almost always more dangerous and like less meaningful. They don't have any.
What would a self-initiation be?
I don't know. Like when I was at a camp counselor at summer camp, there was this old tradition that they had dropped of like trying to catch an alligator. Like you'd strip naked and get in the swamp all together and try to catch a little baby alligator, and nobody would do it. And I was like, you know, fuck y'all, I'm a man, and so I'm gonna do it solo.
Yeah.
You know, like this is just
really or like you know, team gangs do.
Yeah.
You have to rob someone or beat someone or knock someone out. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, right.
Yeah, but on the there was something. Oh, in general, I think one thing I like about what you're saying is that you're not afraid of the power of shame. There's something that like I think Brene Brown, for example, like introduced this really helpful like awareness around like the ways that shame can be toxic and the difference between guilt and shame. But people have kind of taken that too far to be like shame should be shamed. Ironically, like shame is always bad, and I'm like, no, shame's really, really helpful for like getting us out of like narcissism, essentially.
I think there's a spectrum of shame. Like on the far end, it's like I am a fundamentally worthless, bad person. I don't think we want that.
No.
I think you move up the spectrum a little, and it's I am acting like a fundamentally bad person. I'm better than this. I should be better than this. I should feel maybe even just embarrassment is better. I mean, something where it's like the feeling of I don't want people to know that I was acting like this. I hope no one saw. Like that. I think is a good thing. We need that. Know. I think that she I think yes. When you go to the full shame, like, where it's just like, yeah, you feel like it's just you, period. Then there's no incentive to improve either. So that's why it's not even a productive emotion.
Yeah, no, at its best, shame is actually a connection force. It brings you into contact with the larger world and larger society. And then, like you said, at its worst, it's like deeply isolating. So
just like hypocrisy, like if someone is saying, like fuck X group of people, but then someone else says, but it's because they're out group, and then someone else says that about their in group, and they call them a bigot. They should look at those two things and feel embarrassed. They should feel like it's really embarrassing. It should be like your pants fall down in public. Like it should feel like that, I think. And I think that it's problematic that within an echo chamber, that doesn't exist. There's no mechanism to have negative feedback on that. So again, I keep bringing back to this, but of course applies to all kinds of things about how you treat your significant other, about how you treat your kids, about how you are at work, about how you treat your own body,
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense you bringing it back to it. Besides, like, it's something that we share. It's something. It's deep in the heart of the UpTrust mission. It's also, I think it's something we share, and it's at the mission because it's upstream of so many things societally that are happening right now, and that's just, I think, the era that we're in. It's just
I mean, I'm rooting really hard for you guys. I think it's like, I think when you have this discussion, it's a reminder or it highlights how important the company is, and I'm sure some person would just see it and they say, oh, it's a nicer social network. They're trying to build like a different kind. And it's like, if you zoom out, it's like, this is it's like a new, there's a bunch of forces, I think, dragging society down. This is one that's trying to do the opposite in a time when it matters really a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, well, so that's kind of a cool way. I know it's been about 90 minutes. We'll probably wrap up here in a second. I could keep talking forever, but on that, like with the futurism, like, have you come across people talking about like, what happens if we do, like, what are the, like, say UpTrust or whoever X like is successful at actually creating a coherent planetary nervous system, or like a kind of like technology to do Balaji style network states. Like, what are the extreme kind of far futures of like humanity actually manages to coordinate?
I mean, the bad possibility is it's easier because it's like there's a few attractor states. There's like permanent dictatorship, extinction, like societal collapse. And you're set back to like the Stone Age. So that's easy. What's harder and more fun is like, how good could things get? And I think we could just be living in a world where, for lots of different reasons, people in that world would look back at today's world and be like, I cannot believe people ever lived like that. Like how we would look at, I don't know,
the Middle Ages.
Yeah. Like the worst times, and like, peasants and like a really oppressive dictatorship in the year 800 or whatever. Like, and across many fronts. it'll be, they'll travel, they'll go anywhere in the world in 4 hours in like, jets that are faster than we can imagine today. People will live as long as they want to. Some people will choose to not take any interventions at all, not do any of this, and just, the kind of, I think the hippies will just, and some other people too will just like, I just want to die at 85, and that's okay. Other people will want to live till 3,000, and you'll just be able to, whether it's that we master biology to that extent where you can continue to, de-age your cells and refresh them and back up your consciousness, or whether it's in a robot body or uploaded in a virtual world where it's just, I could see the Fermi paradox being resolved by really advanced species don't show any signs because they're all living in a virtual world.
Right.
Living out in the physical world is like, they see that like how we see living in caves, like cavemen, like living outside. We're like, well, we don't live outside like they did. We live inside now because we're grown-up species. And maybe they're like, we don't live in the physical world, obviously. We live in the virtual. So I could see that. And I think, smaller things, but huge deal still. Like, I think cultivated meat, after a bunch of resistance and pushbacks, I think will sweep the world, and there'll be people all over the world, billions of people eating really healthy, really affordable meat that is really made of animal cells. It's not fake meat, but it doesn't come from an animal. I could. There's of course AI is going to be, if in the world you're talking about, it means AI either didn't happen to the extent we thought it could, or it happened and it ended up really well aligned for whatever reason, and it's facilitating many of these things.
Yeah.
Kind of like the culture novels, that Ian Banks culture novels, where it's like AI is, we are its bitch, but in a way that we're happy. It's like, yes, please, you're way better. Thank God we don't have to be running the world anymore. It was like Lord of the Flies here, a bunch of children trying to do like, thank God, like this thing is doing it now. Like, and we can all just be, and there's no scarcity. That's another, I think we could easily have a world. There's just no scarcity. There's space habitats. You want to go live on one of them, again, I'm a little bit describing the culture series world. I think it's a great sci-fi series because it envisions really vividly a utopia. And it's like, sure, a lot of that is outlandish, and probably a lot of that will never happen. Some of it will, though. And like, I think we could get to that world where people will look back at today when people still got sick. People died before they were ready. You lost your loved ones before you were ready. Transportation was so slow, and like distance still mattered so much. And, just one thing after the other. So I think, pain, disease, like poverty, just long gone. Like fears of climate change, that kind of thing, like long gone, cracked, solved, long time ago. And I think that would be awesome. And I think that, and the craziest part is like, I don't think you have to go 250 years like George Washington to today. Things are moving so quickly that if it's good, it's going to be good in our lifetimes. It's going to get, if there is a utopia, we'll probably see it. And if we don't see it, it's probably because either things go really, really bad and we end up living in a nightmare where the opposite, instead of saying, imagine people used to live in 2026, we would just say, we didn't know how good we had it. I would just imagine, I would just want to go back there for one day and just be back there for one day. We don't want that. That would suck. There's also some people are in the middle ground. They think we're going to either slowly decline or slowly get better like we are now, or like we have been, slowly relatively to what could be. And that the 50 years from now will be a more technological or maybe more depressed version of today's world. And that for whatever reason, for one of many reasons I've heard, like nothing insane is going to happen. There are those people too. And I think I'm acknowledging their viewpoints too, because they could be right too.
Yeah.
This could be one big .com bubble. This whole thing, we look back and we thought, said, okay, we all thought, the world was ending, and it's like, it wasn't quite. That could happen too. Or, so who knows? Yeah.
Super cool. Awesome. I don't have any like amazing, great final question. I didn't ever expect to do a bunch of interviews that just happened. And so,
yeah, I mean, you're
doing
a lot of really amazing interviews. I was listening to some of the other ones.
Yeah. So
I like the little world you're building over there. It's great.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Super fun. I look forward to more. And yeah, thank you.
Okay.